LAM is a disease that affects women almost exclusively, and it's been categorized among the scarring lung diseases, the interstitial lung diseases, for the last 100 years. But as research progresses, it's becoming apparent that it's actually a very low-grade neoplasm, or a cancer of sorts, in which smooth muscle cells infiltrate the lung and destroy it, forming cysts, causing lung collapses, and eventually respiratory failure. There was a letter on my desk when I opened the door to my new office from Sue Burns explaining that her daughter had had a pneumothorax during a flight to Denver and that she'd been diagnosed with LAM. She asked me if I could see her in the clinic and to try and help her with her disease. And the fact of the matter is there was very little to offer a LAM patient back then, and she recognized that and asked for my help with forming a foundation that would study the disease, develop a research program, and ultimately try and conduct clinical trials. So MILES stands for Multicenter International LAM Efficacy of Sirolimus Trial. It was a trial that was conducted between 2005 and 2008 in 3 countries. We enrolled 89 patients who were randomized to receive either sirolimus or placebo, and were followed over 1 year on treatment and then 1 year off of all treatment. And what we found was that sirolimus stabilizes lung function in patients with LAM. Those assigned to the placebo group suffered an 11% decline in their lung function during the course of the first year. In the second year, when the drug was held, both groups declined at about the same rate. Our conclusion from that was that the drug only works while you're taking it. And the next steps are to figure out whether it can be taken safely over long periods of time and how early we can safely start it. There were some other positive endpoints in the trial, including some quality of life and symptom markers. And much of the basic research that was done in LAM was done in laboratories around the world, in fruit flies and in worms, and by people who don't study human disease. When it came time to actually test sirolimus, the drug that showed promise in the laboratory, in a research trial, serendipitously, the Cincinnati Children's has the largest tuberous sclerosis clinic in the world under the direction of Dr. David Franz. So Dr. John Bissler, who is a pediatric nephrologist, designed a trial with Dr. Franz and I as co-principal investigators to study the effect of sirolimus on kidney tumors and lung function and in LAM. This LAM effort is really a tremendous confluence of events that no one would have predicted, that the genes would be discovered in the 1990s, that the functions of the proteins involved would be discovered through science in fruit flies that was completely unrelated to human disease, that an FDA-approved drug was available and ready for testing and trials, and that the patients would have organized themselves in a way that facilitates research at the exact time in history when all of these other tools were available.